Man, listening to that theme makes me almost as happy as I was when I watched the Green Bay Packers defeat the Dallas Cowboys 48-32 in the first round of the playoffs. That was truly a great moment in Jean-Luc's life.
Wow.
But unfortunately, we're not a podcast about NFL football. Maybe someday. Maybe I'm into it enough that we can do that someday. But we are here to talk about something way cooler than football. The X-Men.
Oh.
Y'all like the X-Men? It's Crying in the Book Club. This is episode 45. I'm your host, Jean-Luc. Emily's here. You heard Emily.
Hi.
Emily apparently likes the X-Men.
Oh boy, we're going to get into it.
I assumed Emily had zero knowledge of the X-Men, but apparently that's not true.
Oh boy, we're going to get into it.
And Alex is also here to talk about the X-Men.
I want to talk about the Suicide Squad.
What's the... Oh, okay, well...
That's like an entirely different...
They're better.
That's an entirely different universe than what we're talking about today, Alex. I don't know how to break this to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they let you piss on any of the heroes in Marvel's Midnight Suns or like the Spider-Man
But
games.
they should.
Just a DC thing.
I think if I was looking at these two universes and I'm like, which one would be more likely to have powers that have to do with like pissing? I'd be like, I'm sure there's a mutant out there who's like, oh no, my acid pee. Like someone had acid.
There's a mutant for everything. Yeah. So you're right. There probably is a mutant out there with acid
and there's
pee.
There's Glorbo, the pink guy.
Everyone loves Glorbo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love Glob. I actually do love Glob, but partially because of what we're going to talk about, but also partially because of Avengers Arena, which maybe eventually we'll talk about. But Glob is awesome. Truly one of the
Aren't there some runaways in Avengers Arena?
Yeah, Nico and Chase are in.
Yeah,
are in Avengers Arena.
So yeah,
Glob is there. Glob is one of the most persecuted people in the entire Marvel universe.
Yeah, so that fits in our.
Yeah,
I mean that fits in our wheelhouse. We can do that.
Glob just likes doing crimes. It's not as
who
be gay,
who's
do
amongst
crimes.
us?
Yeah.
Anyway,
unlike that Jan Grey. God, Jan Grey.
Hates crime hater Jean Grey. Jean Grey Summers, I guess. We are talking about.
Would love to remind you at every second of this comic.
Yeah. Yes. Emily didn't even see the big twist though at the end.
Oh no! There's
yes, I didn't.
Is it a twist?
I
we'll
tried.
get to that because
it's like. I mean, it's not a twist. Like it.
Yeah.
It's inevitable once you get to it. But we are talking about Grant Morrison's new X-Men. I would say Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's new X-Men because usually that's how it's billed, but I think Frank Quitely probably only does about half of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of fill-in artists is the point. For this episode, read issues 114 through 138, which is roughly the first 4 trades.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be covering the second half, although I think it's going to end up being a little bit less on the next episode in a couple weeks. So we're just talking about 114 to 138. So there's still a lot of stuff that we haven't gotten to. Well, I've read it before, but I don't think Emily or Alex has, but we'll get to that.
I have not.
Anyway, new X-Men. So one of the interesting things about new X-Men is that there is no issues 101 to 113 of the new X-Men because it is in fact just a rebranding of X-Men.
Okay.
There is X-Men 1 to 113, and then there is new X-Men 114 to 1. It goes on for a while as new X-Men.
Yeah, okay.
But it is
Squad would never do that. They would never do that.
Yeah, DC famously never does renumberings or relaunches or anything of the sort.
Nope.
But anyway, new X-Men kind of came about in the early 2000s, but really seems like it was being conceived of as early as the late 90s. This sort of all comes out of the Marvel bankruptcy of the 90s, which after the bubble of the comic book industry burst, Marvel went bankrupt, and in the early 2000s completely revamped a lot of their books, launched the Ultimate Universe, and the then editor-in-chief, who was editor-in-chief for a long time, Joe Quesada, hired a young upstart from Scotland named Grant Morrison to
Can we do
write the X-Men.
Ultimate X-Men someday?
if you want to read more Mark Millar books, we can do Ultimate X-Men.
Oh, I love Mark Millar.
Do I like? Maybe
There
not,
are-
but
From
like
the twisted mind of Mark Millar.
emotionally, yes, I do want to revisit the Ultimate X-Men universe.
I mean, fair enough. There's some Kurt Busiek Ultimate X-Men at some point, I'm pretty sure. There's some good writers who eventually take over or write a few issues. But yeah, Morrison was brought in to write X-Men. This was their first Marvel book and one of only 2 Marvel books they've ever written. Get along much better with the editorial at DC, I guess. Maybe
I didn't realize it was only 2.
Which is so weird.
Morrison is maybe the only guy in the entire industry who like has a better relationship with DC editorial than Marvel editorial. I don't know that like what happens behind the scenes, but like every other writer is like, DC fucked me. I hate working with DC editors. They fucking suck. I love working at Marvel. They pay me better. And Morrison's just like pumping out a shit ton of DC books and does like one X-Men book and fucks off at Marvel. So I don't know how that came to be, but you know, maybe he's just like me and he's just a big DC head from the jump. So I respect it.
I don't know. I
respect it. Like I said, the series.
I just think it's really like Morrison and Moore are like big enemies kind of thing, and I think that Morrison's just doing it to spite Moore, being like, I love DC Comics. Oh wow, before Watchmen, yes please.
But Morrison and Millar are also enemies, and that this has resulted in
Morrison and Millar enemies,
and this has resulted in
Morrison
Millar,
has
like,
good taste in enemies, I think.
Well, like, hey, I'm sorry, like, who does Mark Millar think he is to be like, oh, Grant Morrison's like, you're not on the same wavelength.
Well, okay, to be fair, who does Grant Morrison think they are to say Alan Moore is there? Like,
yeah, that's like, you know what, that's fair.
I love Morrison,
you know,
but
like shoot for the moon, land among the stars.
Yeah. Well, Millar missed the stars too, I guess. I don't know what happened there. But the series, as I alluded to, it's largely drawn by Frank Quitely. He definitely draws most of the issues, but there are a ton of fill-ins with kind of a banger lineup of, you know, you got John Paul Leon, you got Lionel Yu, you got Paul Jimenez, and you unfortunately have the biggest Nazi in comics, Ethan Van Sciver, as well, which, let me tell you, that like jump scared me when I saw Ethan Van Sciver's name. I had no recollection that he drew.
I don't know that I saw his name because I wasn't paying that much attention to the covers.
Yeah. I was definitely a little taken aback by that. But, you know, back then everyone thought he was normal. This is like 2001. This predates the thing where he put out an art book called My Struggle. But yeah, back then no one knew Ethan Van Sciver was a Nazi. Fortunately, now we know better. We're all aware of this.
Ethan Van Sciver? The comic book artist? The Green Lantern guy?
Yeah.
A Nazi?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you do really hate to see it, but, you know, you also really hate to see Ethan Van Sciver. It's definitely, of these artists, bit of a step down from the rest, but it is what it is. But yeah, New X-Men ran from May 2001 to March 2004, I believe. I hope I'm getting those dates right. Which, given how the book starts, I was a little surprised the first time I read this in college to, like, you know, look it up and find out that this book was actually the first like 3 issues of this book all came out before 9/11 as opposed to after,
right?
Which we will get to. But the one other thing that I found kind of interesting when I was reading interviews with Morrison from this time, and actually, funnily enough, this is an interview that is basically just a conversation between Morrison and Millar from 2001. And Morrison said that they actually had no interest in writing the X-Men, and that they thought they'd only ever do it if they could have basically complete creative control. Mm-hmm. And they didn't think that would be possible until, I guess, Joe Quesada told them they could tell the story that they wanted to tell. So
sure.
They, which I don't know. I think that is kind of interesting, given just like how much work for hire Morrison did at DC, but was like, I don't really want to do Marvel books, you know. But they did do this one, and it worked out okay in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I can get into the plot that I alluded to. The reason I'm surprised about the 9/11 thing is that the first story arc in this book involves the island nation of Genosha, which is the sort of mutant haven. It's run by Magneto, being completely destroyed by Sentinels, just like absolutely ravaged. I think the number that they throw around is like 16 million mutants died. There's like one survivor, and it's Emma Frost on account of the diamond skin. It helped, as it turns out.
Question. So I have a lot of I have a lot of history with the X-Men, but as far as like specific X-Men comics, like my working knowledge base is kind of patchy. Had they introduced the diamond skin thing before, or is this a new thing that was introduced?
No, so the secondary mutations were introduced right before this comic.
Okay.
So I
this
don't
was
know
like new when Morrison was doing it, essentially?
Yeah, the diamond skin was new when Morrison was doing it. Actually, they might have come up with a diamond skin for Emma Frost, but I think it's a little before.
Okay, because I knew about that as like part. I knew about that as part of Emma Frost's like powers nebulously.
Yeah,
I was wondering if this was like where it was introduced, or if this was like a new introduction, etc., etc.
The secondary mutation thing is kind of interesting because it starts just before this, but then some of the characters don't have their secondary mutations introduced until this run. And some of them are still getting secondary mutations as recently as like 2017. So, it's it's all over the place, but I think it is new at this time, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But yeah,
I was just
Genosha is destroyed by Sentinels, but Sentinels under the control of Cassandra Nova, who is Charles Xavier's twin sister, who he tried to kill in the womb and like got halfway there and absorbed her, and so she's kind of lived inside of him, but she wound up in a body of her own, and the Cassandra Nova thing is a whole mess.
It's the plot of Riverdale season 5. Is that the Is that the evil twin that they?
That is the evil twin killed in the womb. Yes.
Didn't they recently announce that Cassandra Nova would be like entering the MCU or something? Am I misremembering?
I have no
idea.
Wild. That's possible. But
I'll look into that.
Okay. The X-Men are there now, so it would make sense for some of those other characters to show up.
Okay, it looks like there is a rumor that Cassandra Nova may be a character in Deadpool 3. So,
awesome.
it's possibly
that
unconfirmed. But I remember hearing about like an announcement of Cassandra Nova in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean,
anyway.
she is an important character, so if they're going to do the X-Men, you kind of get to Cassandra Nova eventually.
But she's a weird character.
She is a weird character. She is a weird.
So,
character.
like the concept of how they are going to handle her in the MCU, or the Deadpool movie or whatever is comical to me.
Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but the prevailing rumor is that the Deadpool movie is like a multiverse movie, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like, this is the multiverse where Cassandra Nova killed Charles Xavier.
Fine. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right.
Yeah. They're not going to do the sick thing that this book does, where Cassandra Nova rolls up to the X-Mansion, and they think that Charles Xavier just destroys her like she's nothing. And then it turns out that actually she did a little body swap and takes over Charles Xavier's body.
Oopsie.
And leaves Charles's consciousness in her dying body. Which
reverse.
That's technically kind of skipping forward in the plot summary, but it is what happens. And then once she has control of Charles's body, she begins, wreaking havoc, as one can imagine. She takes the Xavier's School for Gifted Kids public as being a school for mutants, which is a pretty big deal in the X-Men canon. And then she does that, and then she's like, anyway, I'm gonna dip and go hang out with Empress Elandria of the Shi'ar Empire. I'm gonna go
just to hang out, just
to chill. Yeah. So
just kicking it.
Yeah, have fun here, guys. By the way, I installed a nano sentinel virus inside all of you, so have fun with that.
Did I do that?
I wish I could include live footage of me reacting to the word nano sentinels in this podcast.
Yeah. So there is a thing that happens in between that's important, which is that the X-Men meet Xorn, who is this cool mutant in a robot skeleton who has a mini supernova for a brain, and he has healing powers, but not like a healing factor like Wolverine. Like, he heals other people, which is important. So basically, as soon as Cassandra Nova leaves, things start going pretty bad for the X-Men. They immediately have a confrontation with a group called the U-Men, who are humans that are really into transhumanism and love cutting up mutants and taking part and incorporating parts of those mutants into their own bodies and then going and killing mutants. So they, I guess the sequence of events is that Cyclops and Emma Frost kind of go to try and head it off. They end up being captured by the U-Men. And while that's happening, the U-Men are storming the Xavier Institute. And while that's happening, Wolverine is running around meeting new mutants, particularly a mutant named Angel who has these like pixie wings and can fly and
because we didn't have a mutant named Angel before, and that's not confusing at all.
Well, no, he's called Archangel now.
It doesn't matter. She's like a pixie or a fairy or whatever. Yeah. You don't need to call her Angel.
Well, I don't think they wanted to call her Fairy.
No. I just mean that Angel is not even accurate in a descriptive manner. They could have called her literally anything else, but for some reason they had to call her Angel.
It is confusing given,
it's not that it's confusing. I find it annoying.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Because I get at this point you can differentiate between her and Archangel because he is Archangel at the points where they are together in the canon. But it's just still there are so many other names in the English language.
There's lots of words they could have used. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I agree.
That's that.
Yeah, she and Wolverine have a testy relationship that, Wolverine's not the easiest guy to hang out with. We can leave it at that. It all sort of comes to a head. Wolverine and Angel kind of show up back at the X-Mansion at the same time that Scott and Emma are able to free themselves. And, together all of the X-Men are there, and they, completely roll the U-Men, also with the help of some of the students at the school. But if you think this is the last time Xavier's Academy is going to be beset by invaders, you would be wrong. Because just a few issues later, here comes the Shi'ar Empire under the control of Cassandra Nova, sending their elite superheroes to, exterminate the mutants. Scott again finds himself captured, this time with Xorn instead of Emma. Scott Summers cannot help himself. He loves being tied up. Look, and you know what? Maybe that's why he has to cheat on Jean.
He is the damsel in distress.
He is. He truly is. Around this time is also when the X-Men are really starting to be feel the effects of the Nano Sentinels. Beast and Jean and Scott are all kind of out of it because of the Nano Sentinels. Beast is able to figure out a way to sort of stabilize them. And some of the students step up in a big way, particularly Beak, who is a new character, and the Stepford Cuckoos, who are not new characters, but get way more of a spotlight in this run. And they're all able to hold the line and ward off the Shi'ar well. Jean is working to save Charles's consciousness from the dying body of Cassandra Nova, which she does by absorbing his entire consciousness into her, which leads to moments where, over the course of the next couple of issues, where sometimes you see Jean and it's Jean speaking, and sometimes you see Jean and it's Charles Xavier speaking. And I think that it's a decent job of, there's a lot of body swapping in this book. Especially in the segments that
swapping.
We read. Yeah, I guess consciousness swapping. Yeah, they're able to, thanks to a myriad of things, particularly Charles Xavier being back in the mix, and some of the Shi'ar realizing that they've been duped by Cassandra Nova. They're all able to join forces and finally defeat her once and for all and trap her in the body of a Shi'ar shapeshifter, where she, won't be able to accomplish a whole lot. And at the end of this battle is where Jean's secondary mutation comes out, which is, oh my god, she has Phoenix powers. Wow. Every time Jean Grey gets Phoenix powers, this always goes well.
So this is not the first time. This is an ancient Jean Grey thing.
So right? Yeah. So the first, okay. This is the second time I think that the Phoenix shows up. The first time is I think this might be the Phoenix is around.
It's still here. As long as no one
this time it's going to go
relationship with her, breaks up with her, or cheats on her. I think we're good. I think we're
this time things are going to go well. Anyway, Charles gets his body back also, thanks to Xorn healing him, and now he can walk again, which.
He's goofing out here.
Not a secondary mutation. Just Xorn is so OP in his healing ability that he
Xorn is so cool. Xorn just shows up and
Xorn rocks. I love Xorn. Looks at the camera knowingly. You guys are gonna love what happens with Xorn in the next few issues.
Oh
no! So
I do like Xorn.
Now that Xorn's I like Xorn.
Yeah.
Now that the X-Men are in the public eye, Charles kind of realizes, hey, maybe I should have done this from the beginning. Maybe it was a bad idea to keep this hidden the whole time. So he founds the X Corporation as a way to give mutants an outlet to actually help people in a more official capacity than just being a super team. And one of the teams is dispatched to respond to what I believe they think is a chemical weapons threat. Which they figure out is actually Weapon 12, the 12th iteration of the weapons program that created Wolverine, which is a series of mutants who were experimented on by human scientists to create these new weapons. And that team is down in the tunnels fighting Weapon 12. A new guy called Phantom X. Also, another favorite. There's so many of my boys in this book. By the way, Phantom X. I fucking love Phantom X. Phantom X shows up to Charles and Jean. He tells them, "I'm the greatest thief in the world, and I'm a mutant, and I stole all the information about this secret weapons program, and I'll sell it to you all for $1 billion." And Charles is like, "Can I not pay you?" And then Phantom X is like, "Sure. We can just go handle Weapon 12 together." And it turns out Phantom X is not who he says he is. He is, in fact, Weapon 13. But he just kind of dips. He's not he's not trying to fuck with the X-Men or kill mutants. He just gets out at the end. Well, Charles and Multiple Man are defeating Weapon 12. And Jean Grey gets so horny she lets Phantom X escape, which is, it's so stupid, but. And you know what?
Yeah.
Jean Grey is getting horny for Phantom X, and Scott's getting horny for Emma Frost, and they start having a telepathic affair, which is
emotional
awesome.
Cheating, but a little more than that because
it's more than emotional cheating. They are fucking in Emma's mind palace. So, but they're not physically fucking. No. And Emma does this thing where she turns herself into Jean Grey, and it's a whole thing. It's also important to note, not for anything that we read for the future, this is where Dust is introduced, who is a new mutant who can transform into dust, or sand or whatever.
I like Dust.
Yeah, she's cool.
Fan of Dust.
And then the last arc that we read after all of this has transpired, there's some like kind of like one-off issues. There's one where they go to Genosha and find Polaris and a couple other things that happen in between. Xorn takes some kids on a camping trip. But the last arc that we read really focuses on two groups of younger mutants, the Omega Gang, which is run by Quentin Quire, my favorite X-Men character.
Shocking to everyone involved.
So he basically finds out that he's adopted and it shatters his mind. So he's like, I have to become the guys from A Clockwork Orange. And so he and Glob, Tattoo, Redneck, and Radian become the guys from The Clockwork Orange, right down to taking epic drugs that make them more powerful. And then the second group is, and the important thing about them is that they're like these sort of anti-human zealots. They disagree with Charles. They're the new Magneto because Magneto's dead.
Yes,
for sure. For really, truly, for sure.
They're real this time.
Yeah.
The other group is is called the Special Class, which are, I guess, for lack of a better term, some of the more fucked up looking mutants. It's a class that's run by Xorn and consists of Angel and Beak, who we've talked about already, Basilisk, who is a one-eyed Cyclops, but he can't call himself Cyclops, even though he also has Cyclops' powers. This whole thing, and then there's Dummy, who is just a guy in just gas in a suit that smells like farts. Apparently, they talk about this a lot. Ernst, who has super strength, and Martha Johansson, not Martha Johnson, who is just a brain in a vat, who has telekinesis or telepathy. All of this sort of comes to a head when there's a famous mutant designer who's murdered supposedly by humans, and Quentin and the Omega Gang really start getting violent. They go out and just start, beating and killing random non-mutants. And when there's this big open house that the X-Men are planning, and they start a riot on campus during that open house. They kidnap Charles Xavier. Quentin Quire, being, probably the most powerful telepath in the X-Men, in the Marvel Universe, is also able to defeat Wolverine and a bunch of the other X-Men. And it all is finally put to an end when one of the Stepford Cuckoos, Sophie, puts on Cerebro and just fucking zaps Quentin. And leading up to that, I mean, Charles Xavier had already freed himself, and the other X-Men sort of take out the members of the Omega Gang one by one. But the real victory is when Sophie is able to take out Quentin, but she unfortunately dies doing it. Just the shock of putting on Cerebro and expending that kind of mental energy just completely depletes her. And the surviving four Stepford Cuckoos blame Emma Frost for that because, she implanted ideals of being a superhero into Sophie's head, and Sophie wanted to save the day and she got killed doing it. And how do the Cuckoo sisters take their revenge? Well, they go into Emma's brain, find out about the affair, and who do they tell but Jean Grey? And what we read ends with Jean coming back to the Xavier's Institute and walking in on Emma and Scott mind-fucking. And simultaneously, Xorn is unable to save Quentin Quire, and he dies before being able to reveal his secondary mutation. So I know it's a lot. It was like a 20-minute plot summary, but it's a fucking Morrison book, so
there's so much that
who's surprised? There's other stuff I didn't mention. There's some stuff that we'll get to, I think, in some of the questions when we start talking about it. But I'm curious to hear what your guys' familiarity was with the X-Men before reading this, what you've read before, and like how many characters did you recognize is also something that I'm interested in hearing, which that number may actually be higher for both of you than I was expecting, but
I assure you, before we get into this, it is much higher than you were expecting for me. I would like to hear Alex's history with the X-Men because I feel like I'm gonna like ramble a lot. So,
thank you. I mean, I'm an X-Men hater. Always have been. Always will be. I think they suck. But yeah, I mean, I never really read any of the comics. For like when I was getting into comics, I was like, DC, yeah, let's go. So no room for any mutants or new mutants or old mutants or all that.
You might say no more mutants.
I have been known to say that a lot. It's just chanting in the streets, just going at it. But yeah, it's I read a couple ones. I think Marvel now had like X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue and X-Men things, so a bunch of different X-Men colors. Read that, and then the latest one I read, which I actually did enjoy, was Jean-Luc would know, but it's like a few years ago, and Magneto's back, and they have their own like place again, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. X-Men were always just kind of like, they're okay, they're there.
Yeah, the Hickman stuff, right?
The Hickman stuff, yeah. So I read that stuff, and I guess I saw First Class, Days of Future Past, and then the bad ones that came after those two.
What about the bad ones became before those two?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen any of the original X-Men movies.
So. Oh, really?
Wait, really?
I'm not a Singer head, unlike some people.
Yeah, Alex does not approve of Bryan Singer's pedophilia, unlike everyone else who's a fan of the X-Men movies.
Yep, that's the official stance.
Alex is the only anti-pedophile host of Crying in the Book Club. Not true. We are an anti-pedophile podcast.
It's weird you got to say that, but yeah, that's my X-Men experience. Emily.
Oh boy. Okay. So what you need to understand is that I was 10 years old when X2 came out. And I didn't see it right when it came out, but I was shown the X-Men movies not long after X2 made it onto DVD. So I was like fully X-Men pilled by the time that X3 The Last Stand came out. And my actual reading history with the X-Men is kind of patchy. I have definitely read a lot of Ultimate X-Men, and I read New X-Men, like Generation X or something. I don't remember what the actual, I don't remember what the comic is called, but it's like shortly after this, honestly, which is why I recognized Dust. But when I was a kid, I got my parents to buy me a book that was called The X-Men Encyclopedia. And so rather than necessarily dive into reading all of the X-Men comics, something that I did do was obsessively read the biographical information of a lot of X-Men characters. And so, like, I actually, reading this was kind of like, this was a treat for me because there were a lot of characters that I had, like, read, like, their little X-Men encyclopedia entries for, but had never read anything that they had actually been in, and then they showed up in this comic because, you know, when you're getting a Morrison comic, you're getting the deep cut characters. Like, Morrison loves to, like, mine the depths for, like, the most obscure characters that they can include in a thing, or make up the weirdest characters that you could possibly imagine. And I don't actually know how many characters were, like, I don't know how many of these characters were conceived of in this run or are, like, but there were a lot of characters that I recognized from reading the X-Men Encyclopedia as a child that I had never actually read in anything before.
Interesting. So do you know the Xorn twist?
I know, I remember, like, I liked Xorn as a kid. I don't fully remember the Xorn twist, I don't think.
Okay,
but I watched
good.
some of the. Another thing is that I did watch some of the like 90s X-Men cartoon because I used to watch it sometimes when the like reruns would play on like Disney XD.
Gotcha.
So I was really excited to see the Shi'ar when they showed up here.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, there's something about like all of the like space insanity that X-Men also get up to that I just find delightful. So yeah, like this was actually quite a treat for me to read.
Yeah, I bet reading the encyclopedia, they probably do recognize a ton of these characters because a lot of them do go on. Like some of the characters were newer at the time, like not Morris. Like Quentin Quire, I don't think is a Morrison creation, but he had like just been introduced relatively recently, and then goes on to become a more integral character later on. But although not so much anymore. Well, that's cool. I didn't expect you to be a big X-Men head, but
I love that. I mean,
we should.
It shouldn't actually surprise you because like the X-Men have always been like at their core like a metaphor for like disenfranchised groups, and I am the resident SJW.
Yeah.
The X-Men encyclopedia, it was specifically the Marvel Encyclopedia Volume 2 X-Men, and it came out in 2003. So that's what we're working with as far as my knowledge of the X-Men in many ways is concerned.
Well, okay, that's cool.
So it would have been right after this.
Opposite spectrums on the X-Men scale. You've got Alex, who, like, I keep telling God you should read these X-Men comics, and he tells me to kill myself. And you, who are just like, I love X-Men, and I've never told you to read an X-Men comic.
No, you should tell me to read more X-Men comics, I guess.
Cool. Well, I guess since we've done that, what did you guys? Did you guys like this? What were your sort of like general thoughts on what we read of the new X-Men?
I enjoyed this. As I said, like it was a treat to get to see so many X-Men characters that I just like had kind of like stored in the recesses of my brain. But also, I mentioned this in the group chat, but I remember now that when I was in high school, my local comic book shop had a poster of like the volume 1 cover or whatever for this run of the X-Men. And so like seeing it when I was reading was very nostalgic in that way.
Yeah.
Cool. Alex?
I liked it. I kind of like Emily, or I'm not sure how many of these characters are brand new for this run, how many of these characters we knew about. And I feel like when I was reading Hickman's X-Men, it was like, I'm reading the end of a story of something that people have been reading for like 40 years. And it's like, it's a big change now. And I'm like, well, this is all I know. So, I mean, it's a good story. It's written well, but like emotional stakes wise, I'm not like, whoa, this is crazy. But this one kind of came in a time where I'm like, I think it kind of hit perfectly for me where, I know about Magneto and Scott and Jean Grey and all these characters, and they're all doing their thing, and Emma Frost. And I really liked it. And it turns out that Morrison writes well no matter what publisher he's working at. What they're working
Something
at.
that we did like about this series is that it does kind of, you are like, if you're just starting with this run the way that we are, like you are kind of dropping in media res, like down to them not changing the numbering of the comic. I don't know. I appreciate that. I understand when comics try to like, onboard new readers by doing introductory stuff, but I liked the experience of this. Like, you're just like joining the X-Men, like they've been up to shit, and like you're gonna be a part of it now.
This is the thing is that like this is the way that like most people who get into superhero comics get into them. Like
Yeah.
Alex read Darkest Night and then was like, I gotta read every DC New 52 book. And I read Batman Hush and was like, I gotta read every DC New 52
Oh yeah,
book.
Batman Hush was also like one of my introductory books to comics.
Like, but this is how everyone who like people don't need like there all the time you hear that like, oh my god, superhero comics aren't new reader friendly, it's so hard to get into. But like most people who get into them just read random shit that they find at a Barnes and Noble for half price or whatever. Yeah. And then are just like, I love all of this. So it's kind of like the it's kind of the quintessential experience of reading comics. You're just like, yeah, we're just gonna start. I mean, this is not a random X-Men run. Like it is a critically acclaimed, well-known X-Men run. But to be fair, like most of the X-Men runs are like fairly well known.
When I say random, I just mean like you're not opening up like a specific graphic novel.
Yeah, 100%. It takes place in the continuity.
Yeah,
it's I mean, it's throwing so many things at you, but Morrison, they do a great job of making it also new reader friendly in a way where like you just need to know that these characters exist, and if you know these characters exist, it's just them doing their daily stuff.
Like Morrison trusts the reader to be able to keep up, and there are a lot of higher ups in comics who do not trust the average reader to keep up.
Yeah.
And I get that also, because there are a lot of readers who are just fucking dumb as rocks, but you know.
And it's kind of a back to basics thing too, right? Like the main characters in the like when this book starts, the main characters are Wolverine, Beast, Jean Grey, Professor X, and Cyclops, and Emma Frost. But like, it's like, well, it's the classics, but except for Iceman and Angel, who are the original X-Men, but like don't have the same like pop culture cachet necessarily. Like people don't really know them as much. But yeah, like it is like the characters that people know. And then Morrison builds like a bigger cast around those characters. Which is, you know, really fun, I think. So I've got some, I guess I should say, I also like Morrison's new X-Men. I read it for the first time in college and I loved it then, and it was really cool revisiting it. I think like it has some of my favorite character drama with the X-Men. It was funny reading it in college because I had, you know, obviously X-Men First Class had come out and I'd seen all the X-Men movies, and it was like, oh wow, this is so much of those movies is inspired by what's here, like the Jean Grey, Emma Frost stuff. Like it's all here.
I just think Jean Grey and Emma Frost should kiss. That's my takeaway from this whole thing.
Good luck. Good luck.
I know it's not going to happen, but like the song can live in my heart. It doesn't.
One's fire, one's ice.
They did make like Iceman's gay now, and
Iceman's
like,
always been gay. Be
and
serious.
Rogue and Mystique are gay now. So like there are, you know,
but Beast is
Mystique
not.
Beast
was just messing with his ex-girlfriend.
We'll get to the Beast thing in a.
Oh my god! Yeah, we will talk about the Beast thing.
Actually, let's just talk about the Beast thing now. I mean,
sure.
It's kind of interesting because like Alex brought it up, like. The X-Men, Emily said this, but like they have always been like metaphors for disenfranchised people, and in this run, I feel like a lot of that is like there's a lot of the early X-Men stuff is like very civil rights coded, whereas this is like this run is very much like, oh yeah, a lot of these guys are like, we're going to use like a lot of queer signifiers for some of these characters.
A period of the early 2000s where there is like a clear shift in X-Men from being a race metaphor to being a sexual orientation metaphor. Yeah. And not that the race metaphor totally goes away, especially depending on like who's writing the X-Men, but like there's kind of a delineation between like where the metaphor shifts, and I feel like you can also kind of attribute, unfortunately, you can kind of attribute that to the Bryan Singer movies. I mean, Bryan Singer, for better or for worse, is a gay man, and like you can see the like gay you can see the gay metaphor all over the Bryan Singer X-Men movies. Like there's in X2, there's like as far as gay people go, I don't know if the scene is infamous for you guys, but the scene with Iceman and his family, and they're like, have you ever just tried not being a mutant? Is so like, have you ever just tried not being gay? Like that it's just like it's all over, and you definitely see that as like an element of this book as well. And I imagine that part of that comes from I know that Morrison wasn't like out at this time, but not being a cisgender person themselves,
I mean,
that was probably an influence there.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see that, I think, throughout Morrison's catalog.
But the Beast stuff,
it makes sense in retrospect. But the Beast thing, I didn't mention in the plot summary because I knew we were going to get to it. There was a subplot where Beast comes out to the public as being gay, and even he acknowledges that he's not. And
let's be clear, I don't know that Beast actually comes out as gay. What happens is that he says that he thinks he might be gay to his ex-girlfriend, and then she lets that go to the press, which he said that knowing that she would do that. So I guess it is kind of, but
and then he decides to just run with it too, where he's like, well, who better than me, like to, be a voice for the downtrodden?
Who better than me, a heterosexual man, to be a voice for the downtrodden?
Well, to be fair, he is like a big blue dog. Like he may be a straight man, but Beast is downtrodden in a way.
Sure, but he's not gay.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you guys feel about the application of this metaphor, like both with the Beast stuff, but also like, I mean, there's a lot of other characters where I think it's a little more subtle. I mean, there's something about Quentin Quire wearing makeup and like the Omega Squad like dressing the way they do that feels very kind of has that kind of coding, and there's some other characters as well. So I'm curious how you feel that this book handles that, especially given that it's over 20 years old.
In another comic written by another person, I could imagine this being worse than it is. And let me be clear, I don't love it. I think that it's very goofy and kind of dumb and not. I guess I did miss the last 2 issues of the book, so that's on me. So I don't know if this magically resolves, but I didn't love it, but like it also, I didn't find the way that it played out to be offensive, and that is saying something for a comic written in the early 2000s. I feel like I kind of get what it's going for, but I also think it's very silly, and that, maybe this point could have been gotten across in a different way, but I guess I'm also not like a comic writer, so I don't have like a suggestion for a better way to not that I think that there couldn't be a better way, just that I don't have a better way of going about this necessarily. So, I guess my reaction is like a chuckle and a shrug.
Yeah, it feels a little like
it's definitely dated.
It's dated, and like if this came out this year, I'd be like, it's a little amateurish in what it is, but it was 20 years ago, and again, we've read a lot of books that aren't just like, oh, that's like a little that's kind of poor. We've seen ones that are like, oh, this is really offensive nowadays. We're like, this is, wow, this is critically acclaimed. This book didn't pull out the
slur until volume 4.
Yeah.
Impressive stuff.
Why did it wait that long? Well, I don't know. I don't know. We'll talk about that, but
it's kind of in some ways undercut by like what feels like an editorial decision to not have any of the characters actually be queer.
That's I hadn't actually like that hadn't for whatever reason had not necessarily entered into my mind, but that makes it makes more sense if they were potentially actually gonna like go with maybe a gay beast angle and had to kind of walk it back. Because I thought the walking back felt very jarring when I read it. So
there is a part of me that wonders if it's kind of an editorial decision, and part of me that wonders like how they would like how Morrison might have wanted the story to unfold versus like how it had to unfold with some of the limitations. There are some interesting things. Like, I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, obviously, but like there is like the Angel and Beak subplot where like Beak is not like human. Well, none of them are human. They're all mutants, but like there are like sort of
humanoid.
Yeah, he's a bird. Well, he's a bipedal bird.
He's a bird man.
So, yeah, and so there's some things that like I guess you might think of like from a sexuality perspective, you might think of as being like transgressive for the time, but it's still like a heterosexual relationship, right? So it's not like they go all, and this has kind of always been. I mean, it's kind of always been the X-Men's problem, right? Which is that like, I mean, they did the civil rights metaphor, but all the X-Men were white. And then they do the queer rights metaphor, and all the X-Men are straight. Not anymore, but at the time.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of like metaphors for like, oh, like it's obvious what they're saying and thing, but they're like, but it's a metaphor.
Well, yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, you know, you could read between the lines in the 80s and be like, oh yeah, Iceman was always gay, but like he wasn't explicitly gay until like 2000.
No, and you know, some writers didn't write him as a gay person because it was like, you know, there's so many things there, but
what I will say is that, and this kind of leaves aside like the queerness, but I do think that Morrison I think Morrison does a good job with the sort of disenfranchisement of the mutants in the way that he portrays it, because a lot of the time there is sort of the like disconnect of like, well, you can't really oppress these people because they will fucking kill you. I mean, like Wolverine will just run you through. But the way that like you see sort of paramilitary violence used against the X-Men in ways that seem to have no consequences, like nothing happens when Genosha gets completely destroyed. Like there's no response.
Nobody
like,
fucking cares.
When the U-Men, when the U-Men show up and like at a school where there are like a lot of kids, then they just go there with the intent of like killing and butchering them. Like there's no ramifications for it. And then what I also like is that there is a significant part of the story that's about like how once they go out into the public and start doing stuff, like their poll numbers start getting better. And and then there's this sort of like, I don't know if it's self-doubt, but it's an interesting take on Professor X in the sense that he's like, well, maybe I was wrong about something. And, you know, it's not all the time that you see Professor X admit that he might have been wrong about something. Mm-hmm. And then he gets confronted by Quentin Quire, which I think is also an interesting aspect of the story, because it really pits that ideological conflict that was traditionally between Magneto and Professor X in a different light, right? Where now you have, like, when it's with Magneto obviously has the history of being a Holocaust survivor, which informs his background. But what informs Quentin's decisions is very different. It's, you know, seeing like there's the fashion designer, the mutant who's just killed, who he thinks it doesn't end up that he was killed by humans, but like Quentin Quire sees a bunch of like explicit like anti-mutant violence, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, so he's a little bit different than Magneto in a sense. And I'm curious how you felt about, I mean, I know it doesn't really come into play until towards the end of what we read, but how you guys felt about that ideological conflict between Quentin and Charles in what we read.
I find that there's always really like when it comes to mutant ideology, it feels like there's such a range of ways that characters should be able to respond, because like the stakes for mutants range drastically depending on the mutant, because like you have people who look and can pass normally as like a regular human in their everyday life, and then you have like big blue cat men. And so like I don't know, it's always interesting to see how writers handle the difference between like what a character like, I don't know, Emma Frost is gonna face in her daily life versus somebody like Beak.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the stuff with Quentin and those X-Men, I think it's like, I like the idea of it, and especially when it's not someone who's like been against been against Charles Xavier all these years. He's not this like person who's grown and has all this stuff happening. It's a young kid who's like, hey, this is my life, this is what I've experienced so far, and it's like not any less valid than what Magneto has sort of experienced. Not to say like, it's a very different thing, and it's also like, this book's about the New Mutants. It's about this new group of mutants who are growing and going this evolving world. So I thought that was cool. It just, I think it was pretty rushed is my issue. Like that whole arc feels like great. Like the act happens where the guy ends up dying, then they react to it, then they stop Wolverine, and then they get put down, and that's like, and then he dies. And it's just like, I would have loved if this was a longer form thing where it's actually happening and you actually get to like hear from them more than like, oh, we're gonna kill humans because we deserve to live. And it's like,
there is an aspect of it that it's very I understand what the rushed aspect of it. I think part of it too is that like Morrison is writing teenagers who don't have like ideological priors in the same way. Like they're just reacting to what they see, and for all his bluster, like Quentin Quire doesn't really have a well-defined stance or ideology. He just is angry because he's a kid and he sees shitty things happen in the world, and he takes that on them, which is, I think there's the bit where Wolverine actually says like, hey, we should just like be normal about it, and Emma Frost is like, we need to beat the shit out of Quentin Quire. And this is before like he does anything, and she's like, I will kill that child. And I believe that Emma Frost would do that, but
that tracks for her.
Yeah,
Emma Frost is very entertaining in this book. Also, just like Emma Frost on all fronts, just probably my favorite character in here.
She is Mother Huntress this whole book.
It does rock because like she was like, on Genosha. Like she's not traditionally like a protagonist. She's traditionally a villain.
Listen, we love a Vegeta.
Sure, I guess. I don't know what a Vegeta is. Well, I know it's from Dragon Ball, but
Vegeta is a character in the series Dragon Ball Z who starts off as an antagonist, but becomes something of sort of just a weird reformed uncle to the group of protagonists.
I wouldn't say Emma Frost is reformed, but yeah, similar.
Well, I mean,
similar
look, he's
idea,
still evil.
Yeah.
He's just not like doing evil shit. Is the thing.
Yeah,
and I feel like that is also kind of where Emma stands, is like she still has her own like ideological principles, but she's not out there like being an adversary for them.
Yeah, she's sort of been brought into the fold, which is also interesting because it's like, well, yeah, it makes sense because these are the last mutants left, right? Like there was a significant population and now they're all dead. So
much like in Dragon Ball Z, there are only so many Saiyans
there
left.
There you go. So where else is Emma gonna go? Yeah, I love Quentin Quire. I think there's better Quentin stuff in the future, but because like Alex says, this is very like it is very condensed into those few issues. But I actually want to go back to something that Emma mentioned, or Emily, not Emma, mentioned earlier about the mutants who, like, some of them just look normal and some of them don't. I mean, one of my favorite issues from what we read, is the sort of one shot where Xorn goes into Mutant Town or into the city and investigates like this dog that's disappeared and finds that it's a mutant kid who is like 8 years old, but this like massive brown monster, like or gray monster, like and not human at all. And the police end up killing it because they just think, oh, this is the Marvel universe. If something like that exists, it's probably evil. Mm-hmm. And there's this like it's a really humanizing moment for Xorn too, who like it's interesting to suss out early on like where Xorn fits into all of it, because when they bring him back into the fold, I mean he's in a Buddhist monastery, just like living a life of peace, and then a few issues later you see him just completely snap when the U-Men try to kill the kid, the special class. But yeah, I mean that's I think it's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to come back to it too on the next episode when we've sort of wrapped this up, because there's definitely some more stuff along those lines that's coming.
I mean, Xorn so far, I don't know if he's a before character or an after character or what.
No, Morrison created Xorn. I believe is a Morrison creation.
Cool. Yeah, I just like.
Okay, I did just look up the Xorn twist.
Why?
But I mean, I'm gonna get to it. Like, I remember that there
was. No, I know, but why?
Oh, I remember that there was. I remember that there was a twist. I just couldn't remember what it was. Look,
I'll get. Well, now you know. But you'll get to it.
It will not. It will not take anything away from me.
It's pretty soon. It's coming up pretty soon too. So it's not like it's like the last issue of the series or whatever.
Well, so far Xorn, I like calm guy, just here to help mutants, doing his thing.
Yeah.
Her thing, their thing. I'm not sure.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, Xorn is a good boy, and I don't have to think about anything else.
Yeah, is. Zorn's got a good heart.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I did also really. I think that was also my standout issue, mostly because a lot of the other stuff is like so multi-issue, kind of sprawling story, so it's hard to pick one that's a standout. But that one where it's like. It's that kid, and Zorn's just like he never got to get his mutant powers about to be awakened.
Yeah, well, that's what I love so much about it too, right? Is the idea that like there's a uniqueness to every mutant that's different than like the uniqueness to every human, where like it is truly like special and one of a kind. But anyway.
That's something that I like about mutants as like a type of character in the Marvel universe, as opposed to just like normal superheroes or whatever, because like other superheroes tend to just like, even though there are some weird superheroes, like most superheroes tend to just have like superhero like powers, whereas mutants, like it can just be fucking anything. Mutants can have any sort of weird bullshit, and they don't necessarily have to have you don't have to have a logic as to like, how is this character going to be useful in a superhero team, because they can just show up and be a mutant in like, the for all intents and purposes, the background of an issue, and then not have to come back or whatever.
And they can look kind of fucked up.
Or anything.
And they can look kind of fucked up. That's the best part.
Yeah. I like it better when they do.
When they're a little fucked up.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of transition, a big part of the X-Men's appeal has always been like the melodrama of the characters. And obviously, we've alluded to the Jean, Scott, Emma. It's not a love triangle, I guess, because writers are cowards about Jean and Emma, but it is sort of a love triangle. And there's other stuff like in that same similar vein. So I'm curious how you guys, like, if you guys enjoyed the character drama and some of the romance stuff, and like if any of that stood out to you, and just general thoughts on that aspect of the book.
So it's like it's happening as Jean and Scott are kind of drifting away, because I guess Scott came back, or he was dead, or is now. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
There was something that happened to him.
John, what happened to Scott before this? They keep alluding to it. They keep like referencing it.
You're back now, Scott.
I didn't look into it. What happened to Scott before this?
Well,
that's a part of this, like, in media res. Like, what happens?
Yeah. So it's the short version of it is that he had his mind controlled by Apocalypse, who, when they reference what's his name, Ensabanur, that's Apocalypse, who is, from the Age of Apocalypse, famous X-Men story.
Yes.
He had like mind controlled Scott, and I don't remember the specifics, but it had basically, like, as Scott alludes to, like, completely opened his mind and his perspective, and kind of changed him as a person. And so he was like evil, but it wasn't really him, but it also was, because like he was mind controlled, but also like his mind was open to so many like new different things that like it's hard to like it's kind of intentionally hard to discern like how much of what happens was Scott versus Apocalypse. So that's how he sort of ends up in this spot where he's just, like kind of lost and in the mood for, as he says, he needs to spice it up a little bit. Jean's boring.
Jean's so busy with work.
They're separate from one another all the time.
It was entertaining. It was like very trashy. It felt like it was that kind of like thing, and it's so drawn out too. It's just like happening throughout, and it's like eventually I'm just like, come on, like either do or don't, or like commit. And I'm glad that the place where we stopped, we got we got to a place where it's like your mind fucking each other, and it's like, no, it's not what it looks like. And
I don't know. I love that the sort of soapy part of the X-Men. Like, and it's not just like the Jean and the Scott and Emma and Jean stuff is great. I enjoy that, but I also really like the Beak and Angel stuff and the Quentin, like, because it intermixed with all of it is like sort of the more normal like teenage stuff, I guess, which is I think that it's fun to inject that into the X-Men in particular, because it really serves to humanize them in a way that you don't always get in like superhero comics. So I enjoy that aspect of it quite a bit.
Yeah, I just hope that's not the reason that Jean goes Super Saiyan and kills everyone, because if that's the reason, it's like, come on.
Personally, I love the melodrama. I live for the melodrama. Like, I'm just that I love character drama, like, happening when, like, the world is ending. Like, I love, like, there's, like, real stakes going on, but we're, like, really worried about our marriage right now. Just, it's the fact that, like, the fact that it keeps coming up for Scott, like, always kind of made me chuckle a little bit. Which I guess sounds a little mean, but, like, he's not real. It's fine. But yeah, like, I love melodrama as an aspect of X-Men comics, and in particular, I thought that the way everything played out was really fun in this. And normally my preferred X-Men main quote unquote love triangle, even though it's not a true love triangle, is Scott, Jean, Wolverine. But Scott, Jean, Emma, I will take in this moment.
They've kind of gotten away from the Wolverine Jean thing.
I know.
They did mention it in the book, though.
Like, they kind of, it felt like they were like, they went there just a teeny bit in the beginning, just to be like, just to kind of acknowledge it, but it is completely abandoned by the time.
Because they kiss, and Wolverine's like, not happening, bub, and walks away.
That is kind of where it's gotten to, is that, like, there's like a tension, but like Wolverine is kind of over it mostly, which is a shame. Cool. Well, I guess since we are on a time frame, we can kind of wrap it up there. We'll be talking more about new X-Men next episode. So
Yeah.
there's some stuff we didn't get to, but we'll get to it later. I mean, it's some of it we'll revisit some of this stuff, I think, and get to some of
everything
the
that
new
happens
stuff.
in this arc has implications for the next. So
it actually does. I mean, it's Morrison, so it is really one.
No, yeah, like I'm not
story,
being silly when I say that. I mean it genuinely because Morrison loves to have a big convoluted plot that can kind of be tied together with a nice bow.
So we will talk about all of that in 2 weeks, but until then, I'm hearing a noise. Do you hear it?
What's that sound?
What is the sound? Alex, what's the sound? I think Alex muted himself. So
Alex, did you mute yourself?
Oh, that was the Suicide Squad with the latest hit, the Doomsday Clock, on your radio station.
Their new hit single.
How cool would it be if in the Suicide Squad game, all of the music was like sung by them? It was like a really bad covers of them, and it's like in the background playing.
Honestly, I would respect that so much more.
Right? Call me, DC Marvel. I won't pick up the phone.
But you should do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the Doomsday Clock. Signaling
What does it mean?
Time for Cry Space.
My cry space is something that just happened where apparently there's betting markets on whether or not Travis Kelce will propose to Taylor Swift during the Super Bowl at the end of the Super Bowl.
Okay.
They haven't been dating long enough. I'm sorry.
I'm not crying about
at least 10 years.
I'm mostly crying because 10, that's a long time.
Okay, we'll talk about it off show.
I'm mostly crying because that's the betting market and it's legal to bet on things like that, which it shouldn't be. That really pisses me off.
Because people are going to spend their money. Someone's going to put down $200 and be like,
"We have a friend who's going to spend." I have a friend who's going to put money on it. I guarantee it.
The thing is, is this bet what if they get engaged the night of the Super Bowl? Does that count? Does that be at the game?
I think there's conditions, right? I'm looking at this screenshot and it's this one is proposal must be on field after the game. So maybe there's another one where if it's not off the field.
Unless I don't know. That's a good cry space. That's good.
This all kind of ties into the broader cry space of the whole Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are a deep state psyop to reelect Joe Biden, which is so funny to me that there's people who apparently genuinely believe that the NFL is rigged. They rigged the NFL so that the best quarterback of all time led his team to the Super Bowl. The team with the best defense in the league this whole season and the greatest quarterback of all time, Patrick Mahomes, somehow made it to the Super Bowl. And it was all rigged. And also Taylor Swift randomly got famous in the last year. Nobody knew about her before that. And Travis Kelce, he was a shitty player. He's a glorified lineman in the words of some commentators. And
many people are saying this.
It does make me cry that people are stupid enough to believe that, but it also makes me happy that a lot of the macho alpha male types apparently don't actually watch football. That's very funny to me. The right wing anti-sports contingent is becoming negatively polarized against the NFL when your audience is my grandfather is you're gonna convince him to vote for Joe Biden, man. What are we doing here?
Yeah, and I just love that blonde hair pop star dates sports star. Oh wow, who saw this coming?
This is so anti-American.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a good cry space though.
Anyway, I'll hand it off.
I have a cry space. My cry space is that tomorrow I have to get up to drive my wife 2 hours to the airport. And would you like to know what time I have to leave my home tomorrow morning?
My wife, 4 a.m.?
It is in fact 4:15 is when I have to leave my home to drive to New Orleans to drop Gwen off at the airport.
They have a driver's license, right?
Well, we only have one car.
Oh, well.
And I'm taking, and after they are at the airport, I am taking that car up to Minnesota to I'm going to be
Minnesota.
staying there while Gwen is gone, and I'm going to get to take a tour of not the exact apartment that we're moving into, but at like one of the same style, and I'll get to do some more stuff in the area before we move up. So I am excited about that, but oh God, I have to leave my home at 4:15 tomorrow morning.
Are you either staying up all night, or are you doing like, I'm going to bed early?
Yeah, I'm going to bed early.
Okay, nice.
I can't do like, because after I drop Gwen off at the airport, I'm probably just going to hit the road for St. Louis, which is the first leg of my trip up to Minnesota. So I can't do that staying up all night. I gotta catch some Z's before then, but it does mean that I'll probably be going to bed at like 9 p.m.
Wow.
Too early to go to bed.
Yeah, far too early.
Those are some good cry spaces.
Yeah, I'm gonna be crying.
Do you have a good one, Alex?
Oh, it's financial, so that's pretty. Generally, a lot of people cry about their finances, right? Is this true? Is that correct?
Often.
So everyone knows. Maybe they don't, but I'm a big Simple Plan fan, right? Big fan of the music.
I don't know that I knew that. Listener.
Oh yeah.
They're like his favorite band.
Genuinely, I don't think I knew that.
For my childhood times to now.
I love that.
But they announced a tour, but they're not headlining. Avril Lavigne is, which is like, okay, that's fine. I don't hate Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, I bet she puts on a
I don't dislike Avril Lavigne. Yeah, but I'm gonna pay $200 and then see Avril Lavigne with a little bit of Simple Plan, where I would rather see a lot of Simple Plan with a little bit of Avril Lavigne.
I mean, it's probably gonna be like a third Simple Plan and 2/3 Avril Lavigne. That's still a pretty good ratio of Simple Plan.
It's true. It's not my preferred ratio.
You have seen a Simple Plan headlining tour, though, right? Didn't you go a few years ago?
Yeah. But see, I'm at this point, I'm like itching for it. It's been enough time, and I'm like, ooh, ah. The good news about this is they're probably not going to play any of their new shit. I mean, I do like the new album, but like if they're doing a throwback tour where like Avril Lavigne's playing all of her, singles, which I'm like, what else do you have, Avril Lavigne? But anyway,
the Simple Plan's just going to play "I'm Just a Kid" on repeat.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
45 minutes.
Don't forget about "Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous."
I don't know that song. Yeah.
It was the title track on the album "Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous."
If you say so, I don't think I know a second Simple Plan song.
There's "I'm Just a Kid." There's "Shut Up." There's "I Do Anything." "I Do Anything" is they did it into the Scooby-Doo episode they were in. They were in 2 Scooby-Doo episodes. They also do the theme song "What's New Scooby-Doo." So if you've seen the TV show, you know another Simple Plan song.
I have seen the theme song. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah,
they're all over.
So I do know a second Simple Plan song. I know way more Avril Lavigne songs than I know Simple Plan.
Sure, I mean she had one album where there were like 6 bangers that are still like thing, which is probably what she's gonna play at this tour.
Yeah, honestly, her debut album has like so many bangers.
Yeah. My other question is, why is she labeling this as like, I'm playing all my early hits? I'm like, Avril, what do you normally play at concerts? Let's look.
She had a new album last year.
Yeah, but like
she goes and plays was that the Hello Kitty song? That's one.
The one that she did with
90% old hits.
Chad Kroeger?
No, the Hello Kitty song was like a Japan like apparently Avril Lavigne is popular in Japan, so she like made a song for the Japanese audience called Hello Kitty.
So was Carly Rae Jepsen. Good taste.
Yeah, I mean that tracks.
Yeah. But yeah, I bought my tickets this morning because I got a pre-sale code. So excited to go August 12th. August 12th in Toronto. It's not at the outdoor venue. I kind of want to go to the outdoor one, but maybe I'll find a way to trade tickets or something. I don't know.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And I'm also, my other cry space is I'm going to play the Suicide Squad game. Yay, I'm excited.
I want to hear all about your experience playing the Suicide Squad game.
The haters going to hate.
Please keep me updated. Like, genuinely, I need to.
Alex and I will play the Suicide Squad game for exactly 1 hour and 59 minutes and then get our $70 back from Steam.
Please give me as much of a play-by-play as you can. I know you'll be violently drunk, Jean-Luc, but I can only... Well, no,
Suicide. No, I want to experience Suicide Squad. Are you kidding me? I'm going to have been sober for like 2 weeks beforehand to make sure that I have like the true like sober-headed experience of Suicide Squad kill the Justice League. I wouldn't want to kill the Justice League drunk. I feel like that would be disrespectful.
They're going to kill the what?
IPs.
They better not piss on the Flash. That would make me angry. That would make me... everything I'm hearing story-wise from this game, I'm like, this is cool. The gameplay, I don't think I'm going to jive with. It's cool.
I'm sure the game will suck, but we will be playing it.
We will be.
It's out this week, right? On Friday?
I think it's out on Friday, yeah.
So probably by the time this goes up, we will have played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Yeah, I've got time on Saturday.
Would you play it?
Huh? I mean, like, I would consider it. I would consider playing a little bit of it I'll do anything for content.
Okay, if me and John would take the unfortunate
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey in theaters, I'll do anything for content.
Fair enough, yeah.
If we make the bad decision of playing the game past the 2-hour point, and then when you get back, or are you gonna have because you're gone for a week, I'm guessing you won't have your setup.
No, I'll only have my laptop with me.
Okay, yeah. So if we go over the 2-hour mark and then still have the game,
if you still have the game by the time that I am back in town, I will play some Kill the Justice League with you guys.
Yeah, we can stream the Flash boss fight for you and Chad in Discord.
Yes,
so watch us kill the Flash.
I would love
that's
that.
Probably the better plan.
I would love that. Thank you.
They should just call it Suicide Squad Killed the Flash, and then just had you kill the Flash a bunch of times.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, sure.
Photorealistic.
How much would you pay for a game that's just that? Yeah, like you get to pick your Flash.
Oh my god, guys! There's an episode of season 1 of Invincible that has in its voice acting for like minor characters in the episode, both Justin Roiland and Ezra Miller in the same episode.
Wow,
that's rough. You know that Robert Kirkman thinks like he's got to be a Rick and Morty head, right?
Oh, I've no doubt in my mind.
That's crazy though.
Everybody, stay tuned for the Walking Dead episode.
I don't wanna.
No. Walking Dead is good. What we would end up reading of The Walking Dead is good. Well,
that's fair.
I shouldn't make declarations like that because I was 16 the last time I read an issue of
I was 17 the last time I read The Walking Dead, so
yeah.
I was 18, so
I actually might have. I probably was 18 actually, 18 or 19 actually, because I think I stopped reading in 2015, around 2015.
I stopped when a major character who I loved died.
Yeah, and I stopped shortly after that. So,
but also the only reason I stopped is because the omnibus ended there, and I was like, I'm not going to pay for another one of these. That's the story. Anyway,
well, maybe we'll get you another Walking Dead omnibus, and you can.
See, the reason I bought the second omnibus is it was like $30, and that omnibus is normally like $100.
Yeah.
So
it was
like,
they're expensive.
How can I not? How can I not?
Yeah.
And how can you not? Have a nice day. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Do we not have?
Plugs. Shit. Yeah.
Next week on Twitter and plugs. What?
I'm at Mountain Dew Liker on Twitter. You can follow me at Letterboxd at JailbotBill. Alex on Twitter at Alex Hanziak. Emily is at MPandanata. You can follow her on Letterboxd at Pandabor. You can follow her Twitch at Pandabor and listen to her other podcasts, Imagine Me and Utina, Fresh Podcast Market, and That Looks Terrible.
Yeah.
And we didn't forget to do plugs. Totally. We remembered. Well, Emily remembered. I didn't. So, 1/3 of the show remembered.
Plugging.
Anyway, we will end the episode there so Alex can go see Godzilla -1. Godzilla -1 minus color. Is it Godzilla -1 minus colors or just Godzilla minus color?
I think it's Godzilla -1 minus color.
I think
Godzilla
it is, right?
It would just be the original Godzilla, right?
Right, yeah, because the Godzilla it's black and white.
Yeah, it's called Godzilla -1 / minus color.
Gotcha. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. I'm excited. Third time.
Godzilla -1 0.00. You cannot have color.
But
I want color.
Shin Godzilla, I think.
Bye.